Hey everyone, this is David Walker with your Electoral Vote Tracker review for August 22nd, 2020. My first video, well, the first time I'm doing the Electoral Vote Tracker as an actual video instead of a tweet. Part of the reason why is because I want to go through each of the 50 states and also try to report if there's any problems and try to explain in better detail than I could with 280 characters. And I didn't want to leave a giant thread of tweets all over the place. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start with the states that did not see any change from last week. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm just opening up here my little Excel sheet as well. So we're going to start off with, obviously, Alabama is safe Trump. No change there. He's up 22 in that state. We're going to go to Arizona next. So Arizona, it is still lean Biden. And now I'm going to explain here that these are based on the polls of the last 30 days or the most recent poll on 5/38. So it's an average of the polls over the last 30 days or the most recent poll that is on 5/38. So some of these might seem a little bit off. We're not quite sure what could happen with them. I will actually go through and put a 2016 bias after this. Yeah, because in 2016, as you probably know, even though a lot of people say, well, the polls were within the margin of error nationally, and that is true, there were many states where the polls were outside the margin of error, and we're going to go through that as well with the 2016 bias when I apply that on. All right, so let's get back to this here. California, no change. Very safe Biden. Going to go to Colorado. Again, no change. Very safe Biden. Connecticut, no change. Very safe Biden. Delaware, obviously, Joe Biden's home state. No change. Very safe Biden. We are now going to move to Hawaii, where Biden is currently up 27. Now, some of these states have no data. And part of the reason why I want to just go ahead and just call it is because they have no data because they're pretty safe for their potential candidate. States like Idaho, which is safe for Donald Trump, and Illinois, which is safe for Joe Biden. Now, I'm going to go back up my list here. I'm going to go to Arkansas. Now, Arkansas, there is one poll that came out. It has Trump only up by 2, which is technically the line between lean Trump and Tossup Trump. However, I believe that Trump won this by 27 and had a 6.2 point bias. I have a really hard time thinking that that one poll is indicative of the entire state. So until further notice, until I see a second or a third, I actually am going to make that likely Trump at the moment. And spoiler, the 2016 bias still has Arkansas very much safe Trump. But for this, I call it non-biased poll, based only on the polls and the averages of the last 30 days. In this case, the most recent poll, I have to put it in the likely Trump category. Okay, so moving on, we're going to Indiana. Indiana still pretty safe Trump. The next one is Kansas. Now, Kansas has been having a few polls where Trump was up by only 7. It is more than one poll. I believe it's 3 polls, actually. So we can safely move this to likely Trump. Well, I mean, it was likely Trump last week as well. But now I think it's pretty solidly that Trump might actually have trouble in Kansas. Maybe a little bit of trouble in Kansas, but he should pull it off, no problem. All right, Kentucky. Now, Kentucky is interesting. Not too many polls. More polls than what a safe Trump state should have, but Trump is currently up by 15 there. Louisiana finally got their first poll, and I had this safe Trump for the longest time. Now I actually found that there's one poll that came out that apparently got a decent grade by 538, not very biased, had Trump only up by 7. So now I officially have to move this to likely Trump. So we will put that there. The next one is Maine. Now, Maine is one of those states where they award an electoral vote for each congressional district. But for the state at large, it is still pretty safe. Nothing new to report in the state of Maine. It's still safe Biden for the at-large, safe Biden for District 1, and toss-up Biden for District 2. Maryland doesn't get much safer than Maryland or the District of Columbia. That is definitely going to be safe Biden. I don't see any legitimate way that it couldn't be. Let's see what else here. Massachusetts, very strong, safe Biden. Give you an idea how safe it is. His lead got strengthened from 33.7 on average to 34 even. So that's interesting. Michigan is still likely Biden. Actually, his lead has increased there from 8 points to about 9 points. Minnesota, it has gone the opposite direction where he went from 9 to 6, but it's still likely Biden. On that one, we're going to go to Mississippi. Mississippi, Trump is up 10. That is just on the line of safe, so I will keep it at safe Trump. Missouri. Missouri is a state where Trump has been consistently pretty much, Biden had a little bit of challenge there, and actually at one point he was up a tiny bit, at least on the poll averages, but then more polls started coming in to double check, and Trump is still very solidly in the likely column for this one. Alrighty, we're going to move on now to Montana. Montana, Trump was up 7 last week. He is now up 8 on average this week. That still puts it as likely Trump. Nebraska, no data for District 3. No data for the at-large state. It's still very safe Trump. However, like Arkansas, District 1 is really interesting. So District 1 is where Trump won by 21 in 2016. And currently there's only one poll out where Trump is only up by 2. Again, I don't believe it. I am putting it in the likely column until we get a second opinion. So I'm not, even though it is technically supposed to be a toss-up Trump according to that poll average. And finally, District 2 is, well, it was likely Biden, but it has been a long time since they have polled there. I'm going to move it to lean Biden for right now. And the reason why I'm only putting it at lean Biden at the moment is because, a lot of things could happen between that one poll that happened several months ago and now. And it's very uncertain. Remember, Trump did win this congressional district as well back in 2016. All right, Nevada, one poll. It has Biden up by 4, so we're going to move that to Nevada onto lean Biden. New Hampshire is still very safe. Well, I can't say very safe. Biden's lead there has dropped from a 13 average to a 10.5. New Jersey still very safe for Biden. Rhode Island still very safe for Biden. No data for Vermont, but it doesn't really take a genius there. New York, very strong for Biden. New Mexico, very strong for Biden. North Dakota, very strong for Trump. Ohio, Ohio. I had to check there because actually there was a flip, I believe. No, there was a change in the state of Ohio for the 2016 bias map, but it is still toss-up Biden, just barely. His lead has just narrowed from 1.2 points on average to 0.3. Similar with North Carolina, but his lead has widened a little bit there from 1.5 points to 1.7. Alrighty, moving on. We got Oklahoma. No change there. Strong for Trump. We got Oregon. No data. But it's expected to be pretty safe for Biden. I know a lot of people are saying, well, the Portland riots could change that state to make it competitive. But I don't see any data or any proof that that's going to happen. I still think it is very much Biden's to lose there. Another state that is Biden's to lose in the likely column right now is Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, Biden's lead is still 6 points and remains 6 points. Maybe it's more like 5.5 now, but still very likely in the Biden category. I already did Rhode Island, so we're going to go to South Carolina. So South Carolina is still in the likely Trump category. Trump is up 5.5 points in South Carolina. Now, before you ask me, what are the differences between the colors here? Well, I'm going to use South Carolina's example here. So safe means that they win by more than 10 points. Likely means that it is between 5 and 10 points. Lean means between 2 and 5 points. And then there's toss-up or tilt, which is less than 2 points. So in this case, up 5.5 puts South Carolina in the likely Trump category. So just in case you wanted to know, South Dakota, safe Trump. Tennessee, 2 polls there have Trump only up 9, so I'm moving that to the likely column for now, but I do expect that to be fairly safe Trump come election time. Texas, a very looked after state right now, is still toss-up Trump. I believe his lead has only increased from 1.5 to 1.6 points there. Utah, Trump's up 19. Now, Biden actually was within 5 for a little while, so this was actually lean Trump for a little while, but I think Trump has locked it up there with some of his tactics. We're moving on now to Virginia. In Virginia, it is still safe Biden. Biden holding a 11-point lead there. Washington, only 1 poll there. Biden is up 34, which is pretty amazing. West Virginia, Trump is up by this exact same amount, 34 points. Wyoming, no data, but that one doesn't take a genius. It's one of the strongest Republican states. And then there is Wisconsin. And with Wisconsin, it is in the likely Biden category right now. And that is, well, his lead increased from 6 points to 7.5 points. So that leaves us with 4 states to talk about today. We're going to talk with Alaska. One of the polls had bottomed out there. That had kept it as lean Trump. Trump was up 3.5. Trump is now up 6. So we are moving it from lean Trump to the likely Trump category. Moving on, we have the state of Florida. Now with Florida, I had Biden up 5.4 points last week, but because a couple polls that were strong for Biden expired there, he is now just beneath the cutoff for likely, so we are moving it to lean Biden. Biden is still very much, though, in the running to dominate there, so I don't see much of a problem there. And Georgia, well, Georgia's been flipping and flopping. This is definitely the flippy floppy state, I feel like, this year. And it's been going either way. So it's like, well, who has the lead right now this time? Well, this time it is by 0.2 points, Joe Biden. Last week it was Trump by 0.2 points. So as of right now, it is the 16 electoral votes would go to Joe Biden. Finally, with Iowa, this one actually went the other way. Biden was up 0.3 points last week. Well, Trump now has a half-point lead in the state of Iowa. So with that, here you see it is 369 to 169. The fulcrum here lies just in the likely column, and it looks like the turning point state is probably going to be Pennsylvania, where it is basically the least likely, the least likely Biden state. And he's only up about, and I'm going back to check here, 5.6 points. So as of right now, with the election, I understand nationally he's up 9 points. But I want you guys, for those of you that are followers of me, I go based on the turnabout state, and the turnabout state, whoever is up, is the actual election totals. So as of right now, Biden is up 5.5 points in this election. Well, that is according to the unbiased. Now, if you give me a second here, I will show you the 2016 biased election results. So give me 1 second as I pause. Okay, so here is the 2016 map. This is the map where the 2016 biases put in. Now, as many of you had heard, the 2016 election polls were supposedly correct nationally by about, I think, within 1 percentage point or 1.5 percentage points, which is true. It was more accurate than the 2012 election nationally, but by the state, there were a few key states where it was actually heavily biased against Trump. And as a matter of fact, most of these states were heavily biased against Trump, but the ones in particular I want to talk about are the states of Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, and especially Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and actually Arizona was a little biased too, but it was only by 1 point, I believe, 1.3 points, just very lightly. So that's why it is still a narrow there. But that one, and also the state of North Carolina as well. So, for example, North Carolina, they were off by 4 points in Trump's favor. In the state of Georgia, they were off by, well, okay, they were off by only a point in that one. In Florida, they were off by 2 points in Trump's favor. Pennsylvania, they were off by 4 points in Trump's favor. The state of Michigan, they were off by 4 points in Trump's favor. Minnesota, 4 points as well. The real winner, though, is Wisconsin and Maine 2. Maine 2 actually had 10 points in Trump's favor, but let's give them the benefit of a doubt. There were very few polls, and it was congressional district 2, and it's harder to poll in a congressional district. That is true. So we'll give them that one. But Wisconsin, they were off by 6 points on average, and this was 538. All right. Remember, 538 was actually the most fair of all the polls, and they were the ones that got it right the best out of all the big names. So you could only imagine what other polling companies and other news organizations were off by if 538, which was one of the fairest and gave Trump the best chance to win, was off by 6 in Wisconsin, off by 4 in Michigan, Minnesota, off by 4 in North Carolina and Pennsylvania. So, but even if you add those biases in, this is what you got. 319 for Joe Biden, 219 for Donald Trump. So Joe Biden is still very much in control. Matter of fact, I believe he gains the state of Wisconsin in this one, right? Yeah, I believe he does get a flip in the state of Wisconsin. So, yeah, he does get a flip in the state of Wisconsin, and I believe that's the only one. But you can see a lot of these states here with the 2016 bias flip to Trump. North Carolina flips to Trump. Georgia flips to Trump. Maine District 2. Ohio is another strong one where Trump was actually up he got 6 points bias on that one as well. But I believe they had picked Trump to win that state anyway, most of them. At least 538 picked Trump to win that state by 1.9 points, but he actually ended up winning by 8. So that is and Louisiana, there wasn't too much bias, so I kept it in the likely Trump category. So that's pretty much it for the electoral vote tracker. I will put this in a tweet tonight, and I will see you all for the next electoral vote tracker next week. Bye, everybody.